Welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast, the podcast that's almost as good value as Glenn Kamara. This week on Heart and Hand, Lennon Must Stay. So welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name's David Edgar and I'm joined by two of the elite members, the Scott Arfields of the Heart and Hand team. First of all, the lovely Mr. Ian Hogg.
Good afternoon, David, and good afternoon, everyone out there.
And the splendid Mr. Cameron James Bell.
Good afternoon, David. Good afternoon, Ian. And good afternoon to everyone.
Now, myself and David Marshall did the preview last week on Heart and Hand Extra, and both of us were extremely confident, going for 2-0 and 3-0 victories. I was right, he was wrong. But I think it certainly wasn't bravado. I mean, I've been known to chuck in I think we'll get it, but that one was entirely, as we'd demonstrated throughout the preview, of, we're going to win this, we're better side than them, we're playing better than them, we're going to win. And then turning up on the day, Hoggy, to find out that they would be without Tierney and Forrest, two of their better players, to find out that sans keeper, we pretty much had our first team lineup and Alfie available to come off the bench. I knew going in there that not only were we going to win, we were going to win well. And every bear I met yesterday didn't get the usual mixture of, I'm not sure, or we're not playing. There was none of that. Everybody's like, yeah, we're going to win.
Probably summed up, David, by I was confident mid last week. When does that ever happen?
Yeah,
it does. I was relatively confident, probably for a few reasons. One of them being the Lennon factor. And if you're listening, Dermot Desmond, he's doing a splendid job.
Brilliant. In fact, if you don't give him it, you're a bigot, because it's blatant anti-Irish racism.
Absolutely. It's like those bigoted flying coins at Tynecastle.
Yeah. We can't have this. I just don't want to live in a country where Neil Lennon is not the Celtic manager. So come on, do the right thing.
And remember, we all fear him.
Well, they're terrified. I mean, I certainly fear him. I've got a stepdaughter.
Well, exactly. I mean, if I was a pregnant woman, I would certainly fear him. Yeah. I was confident during the week because it looked as if we had our full strength side, bar, as you say, the keeper. Wee bit worried about Fotheringham playing and maybe Tom Rogic trying shots from outside the box, because usually they're like a penalty. But the game started and immediately, and yes, I get we scored inside 2 minutes, but even in that first 60 seconds, we were up for it, we were sharp, we were hunting in packs. Celtic was just clearing the ball, and that's just inside the first 60 seconds. So it's, it was confidence before the game, and it turned out, for once, it wasn't misplaced. I've not felt that confident going into an Old Firm game, David, since Walter Smith was in charge.
Yeah. I'm not into the kinkier side of the porn industry, Cameron. I'm a traditionalist, right? Naked ladies, maybe getting up to something, but still within the realms of, I think, what we would suggest that our Lord would accept as sort of procreative behaviour. But if I had been into the kinkier, if I was more, say, Germanic in my tastes, we got to see some scat early on when the Celtic fullback Mikael Lustig shat himself. It was to continue throughout the first half, but even in leading up to that goal, Ryan Kent gets the ball, Mikael Lustig defecates, and foul's made by that wee lad, the YTS boy that they seem to bring out at Ibrox, that wee tiny guy, was his name Mikey something. And obviously that leads to the goal. But as Hoggy says, even from the start, probably for the first time I can remember since a lot, I mean, even beyond that Walter team, they've got a player. We've got a player, rather, that they actually are scared of, and that's Ryan Kent.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the approach to yesterday's game for me typifies how we celebrated in December. The difference being December was needed, yesterday was expected. And that is probably the truest phrase that I can think of in terms of where we're at now when getting into Old Firm games. Because the team has obviously been playing well in the run-up to it. Hoggy's 100% correct. The whole scenario for the free kick comes around because Ryan Kent is absolutely hunting down the ball. He stops Lustig's clearance. Mikey Johnson, who has obviously been instructed to do this, one assumes. I mean,
absolutely. Get two on him all the time.
Yeah. So very, very, in order to use your porn connotation, turned into 2 Celts, 1 cup, and
they filled it.
Yep, they absolutely did. Kent is brought down, and as I say, I think the fact that we started the game in such a high tempo and such a high press, the goal, bizarrely as this may sound, the goal was actually irrelevant because I'm very convinced even if we hadn't scored the free kick, we would have continued with that level of tempo and intensity, and that's what won us the game in December, and absolutely is what won us the game yesterday.
Kent didn't have his best game, but it's important he was on the field, Hoggy, because, as I say, they fielded him, and that meant they kept 2 on him all the time, which led to more space. But unlike maybe previous Rangers teams, we can use space we're given in these games, and Scott Arfield had a field day.
Yeah, on Kent, we've not even touched on any of the goals yet, David. On Ryan Kent, he was all right. I think you're right. By some of the performances we've seen from him this season, he was okay. But that whole fear factor is huge. The whole, Mikael Lustig, we're talking about a Swedish international fullback who has lorded it up here.
He wore a hat once.
Absolutely. Let's make no bones about it. He's lorded it up here in a way that only good footballers should. He's basically jumped on the bandwagon to be, captain twat. And he wears that look very well, I have to say. So yesterday he gets torn a new one by Ryan Kent. He gets his wee pal, wee Mikey boy, to basically double up or help double up. Ryan Kent still has the beating of them. Mikael Lustig, incidentally, I'm sure you're going to come to it, David, but I have to mention it here. Mikael Lustig shits the bed that often yesterday that I am in no doubt whatsoever he then feigns injury when 4'8" Jermaine Defoe beats him in the air.
That was exactly, but we might as well mention that just now, as you say. Second Old Firm game at Ibrox in a row. Lustig pretends he's injured to get off because he's, as I say, he's dehydrated from the amount of times he's soiled himself. As you say, when Defoe then out muscles him at a header, he goes down. And there's a lovely moment when you see there's a photograph of him holding up 8 fingers to Connor Goldson to obviously suggest, we've won the title 8 times in a row. And Goldson just pisses himself laughing. I think it's pretty obvious that someone in the Rangers team, maybe Connor Goldson, maybe not, went, "Oh, you injured again, are you?" And look, we've all chucked a sickie when everyone's known it's a sickie, and you get quite defensive about it, don't you? You're like, no, I was genuinely ill, but it's because they know that you're at it. No, sorry, it's not bad luck, Mikael. You fucking shat it, son.
The failed clearance, as I say, when Kent shuts them down so quickly, albeit it's Johnson that gives the foul away, but in the first 90 to 120 seconds, Lustig has already basically conceded the goal because he didn't clear his lines properly in the first instance. And he was out of the game as soon as it kicked off, basically. You don't, I'm sorry, but that close to half time, you don't say, "I need to come off." And it's brilliant because that's him, Boyata in the game at Parkhead, just very, very happy just to go, "Oh, do you know what? I'm injured, I need to come off." That's it. That's the bottom line. No desire to actually get treatment, come back on, etc.
No, he wanted it there. He did not want to be on the field. He'll be seeing Ryan Kent in his dreams. Rangers get the free kick. James Tavernier decides to, as he said afterwards, Ryan Kent said to him, "Smash it in towards the back post, see if it can even maybe go through without a touch." And he said, "As soon as I caught it, I knew it was a good one." It does it, pace of it as it flies into the net is what does it. I mean, it absolutely explodes past the goalkeeper into the net. And I was so happy for Tav, Hoggy, because he's been in the end of some right doings against this mob, and his utter delight when the ball hit the back of the net was lovely.
It was brilliant. James Tavernier has grown as a player and grown as a man, I think. He's been on the back of some horrendous performances as a Rangers player and some bad beatings off of that lot. When I think we chucked it, our players in the park chucked it. I'm thinking the 4-0s and the 5-0s of this time last season. But even before that, when Tav's getting caught out of the back post 2 games in a row at Tynecastle, he's shown mental strength that I didn't believe he ever had. And he's shown real mental strength to become the captain of Rangers. And now I think he's a very competent captain, and I've questioned his captaincy basically for the thick end of 2 years. Now I think he's a Rangers captain. He's shown that he can come back from that adversity. But the sheer delight on his face, we all loved it. You got to know he bloody loved it, because that was almost 3 years or whatever it is of angst coming out to play in one big joy moment. It was superb.
No, it's also for me slightly more direct and more recent than that as well, Ian, because you're talking about the guy who, I mean, you could toss a coin and say who was at fault, but I think a lot of people blame Tavernier for the winner at Parkhead. And the ability to brush that off and go into this game and produce that so early on, for me, I think speaks volumes of the growth that you've just mentioned. Because he could have went in with, I mean, we do know that he does have plenty of scar tissue. And although the game at Parkhead wasn't a pumping, the psychological drama that we had in that, because we were in the ascendancy at that time and should have won that game, and we ended up losing it due to an error he was involved in, I think he deserved it more than anyone else, if I'm being honest. That goal yesterday and that celebration, and that's not even just with everything that's going on. It's even the most recent game versus them as well.
Sorry, David. As a complete aside on that, I think James Tavernier deserves special mention for his performances in the past, 6-7 games, whatever it is. We've changed shape to be able to accommodate Jermaine Defoe and a now fit Stephen Davis, etc. We've changed shape, and Tavernier would always get exposed if Candeas either didn't play or wasn't playing well, because there was only really one more deep line midfielder. So he would tend to be exposed with a 2-on-1 an awful lot. Now with the change in shape, you can see Tavernier effectively defending in normal circumstances, if you like. There's always a second man nearby if anyone's doubling up on him. And we've lost, 1 goal in the past 6 games. And I think his defensive showings have gone up a notch. And he just seems a far happier player because of it.
Our win in December was the result of a crazy intensity from the players and the fans that day. It was nuts. It was just one of those days, special days, where it caught fire early and everyone was up for it, and it overwhelmed Celtic, and Rangers got the result. But yesterday was different. Rangers played a different match where they didn't sit off them per se, but they were quite happy for Celtic centre-backs to have the ball. As soon as Celtic brought it in areas that Rangers didn't want them to have it, we took it off them. And the midfield were superb. Glenn Kamara, Stephen Davis and Ryan Jack. Each of them were winning their individual battles. Celtic initially had gone with, for some reason, a 4-4-2, which gave us the extra man in midfield. They eventually had to change to try and cope with that, but that then meant that basically all they could do in an attacking sense was try and go down the wing and put crosses in, which Rangers just gobbled up with the 2 centre-halves yesterday. I thought were magnificent. So Rangers played a different game yesterday, and I think partially, Cammy, that's due to you can't replicate. It's been 8 years since we've won in a league game against this mob. We really need it. That was then. This one was more tactical, and Stephen Gerrard spoke about it afterwards, where he said he was in many ways more happy with this one because it was a more controlled display. It was a more football display, a less emotional display. And in that first half, if you look at the possession stats for the whole match, Celtic had 57% of the ball, but Rangers were quite happy for them to have it, and all the decent attacking stats are at Rangers because, as I say, your centre-halves can have it, they're not going to hurt us, but as soon as you come into this area, we're going to spring and we're going to attack. First half, we maybe struggled on the counter, but in the second half, we shoved Kent in a little more, and that meant when Rangers broke, it was him, Defoe and Arfield, and we caused them no end of problems.
Yeah, I think that this is a difference between what we saw, and I was standing next to Hoggy in the game in December, and I'm sure he'll remember me saying to him, we can't maintain this level of press across the park for 90 minutes. It just can't happen. Fortunately, we managed, because I think, as we spoke about at the time on the pod, the manager had said, I just need the boys to empty the tank. I just need them to give everything, and then they can take a break, which obviously, albeit the league is over, we couldn't have done yesterday. We didn't have to do, because we didn't need to control the entire park. We just needed to control probably about 70% of it, because the 30% that we were happy for Celtic to have was probably from their goal line to probably, I would say, about the 40 yards forward. And as long as we maintained the press from the start of their half and maintained it through all of ours, it was far quicker. And the difference for me as well was we've probably now looked against Celtic that we haven't treated the ball like a hot potato. We haven't had to pass it about, and it's just a case of getting it to someone quickly in order to... Yesterday, we recycled the ball. Yes, it's a wanky phrase, but we did it. We gave it to players who were able to play a shorter pass just to frustrate any kind of press that Celtic tried to replicate against us. But we had the control and the structure to be able to shut down players when it was necessary, but just allow them to have the ball when, that was acceptable. It was just far, far better managed. It was far better managed by the players. There's absolutely no doubt to my mind that Stephen Davis's recent upturn of form benefited us massively yesterday. That's why we wanted him. That's why we brought him back to Ibrox. It's why we've extended his contract. But for me, this is where that's where he comes into his own yesterday, was being able to control the tempo, control the pace. Ryan Jack fed off of that a lot for me. He was able to really get some good partnership building up alongside Davis yesterday. Kamara was superb as well. And then all of a sudden you've got a front wave really of three attackers, all of whom can connect brilliantly. It just worked all over the park, David. There wasn't a single player that came off yesterday, and I'll include Foderingham in that as well, by the way, who couldn't have looked themselves in the mirror in the change room and said, I've done my absolute utmost today and deserve that victory.
I think then, as we went into the second half, the only concern is that always is an Old Firm game is we're only one up. But Rangers, as I say, I thought played even better in the second half, and Celtic just looked utterly devoid of ideas and energy. Rangers looked very comfortable. Edouard obviously is a quality player, but I felt that Big Katic handled him expertly, and when Rangers did get a second goal, it was a thing of supreme quality. Lovely feat from Glenn Kamara to get away from Scott Brown, takes it back and then just dances away from him with a beautiful turn. He then threads the ball through to Jermaine Defoe, who for some reason, sixth sense, I don't know, either or incredible peripheral vision, leaves it, knows to leave it, just steps over it. You don't get an assist for that, but you really should get half an assist, I think. And as he steps over it, that ball goes beautiful angle as well, just absolutely in between the Celtic centre-back and the goalkeeper. In his running, with a trademark run, Scott Arfield, he gets on the end of it. We slide and finish, kind of reminiscent of the one that Nikita Jelavic got in the 2011 League Cup final, but none of this post nonsense. It was just straight into the back of the net. Ibrox explodes, and even with 25 minutes to go, Hoggy, we knew that was it. We're done.
Oh, the game was done. Absolutely at that point. I mean, we pressed really hard in the first half. Yes, we let them have the ball, especially the two centre halves, because they're not great passers of the ball. So we let them have it. As soon as it went out wide, we're pressing on top of them. The second half, I think, as you said, it was far more about controlling the game. It was about winning the ball back when we've got the ball. Let them have it, but win the ball back and then let them press and use the energy. And all we did, even though they were matching us up in midfield by that point, we were just passing triangles around them. Lovely to see. And that second goal, an absolute explosion of noise. Where you get the first one's like a surprise, and the crowd are quite excitable around it. The second one is a build-up of we know that's coming, but you've still got that fear factor of it is only one. So when it comes, it's relief, it's expectation, it's joy, and there's a magnificent photo. I think it was maybe Willie Bassett took it, I don't know, of as Scott Arfield goes away on his knees, saluting the crowd. There's a young boy standing up on top of the wall and the Sandy Jardine stand, saluting them back. And I think I read earlier that Rangers are going to send the boy a printed copy of that magnificent photo. And but just sums up the whole moment of. And we talked about this in December. We talked about a support and a team in harmony. And it sounds as if I'm going to start going overboard any minute. I'm not. I will come on to why later. But at that point, it just felt as if that's deserved. The crowd are with us. The players are all playing well. This is our Rangers. This is what Rangers should be.
There's a great clip which has been doing the rounds on social media. I think I retweeted it actually, which talks about that segment of play, that bit that Ian was just talking about there, where it's all crowd noise, there's no commentary in the back of it. And there's a great, brilliant kind of burst of applause and exclaim as Kamara does the turn. And there's this wonderful moment of disbelief and probably just this incredulity of what Defoe's done by the dummy. And it isn't until, and we all probably had the same emotion watching it live, that as the ball then feeds through to Arfield, he obviously then scores. But as soon as that ball slips through, everyone in the crowd appreciates what's happened, like what Defoe has done. And it's just this wonderful delay. If you can watch that, just again say, without commentary, just listen to the crowd, it's goosebumps. It really is. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that it was just such a wonderful moment, and as I say, Rangers then sort of cantered into the victory. Now, at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean all that much in terms of the league title. Unfortunately, we could, enjoy the win, but Celtic are still the champions, and fair play to them. We can't take that away from them. But I'd like to speak a little bit about the evolution of this team, and I think you can chart the evolution of this side through the 4 Old Firm matches this season. And the first one, although there were extenuating circumstances, Rangers were just off the plane from Ufa, and 9 men, all that kind of stuff, and decided, as the manager has later admitted, the players simply couldn't really, they didn't have the energy levels to do anything else, but decided to sit off Celtic, try and defend, try and hold on, and were undone by a foul on Ryan Jack. I still think he could have done a bit better, but still undone by a breakaway goal and lost the match. But in that match, Rangers were timid. Rangers, you could tell they didn't believe. And again, the manager at the Q&A that I went to a couple of months ago at Ibrox, he said, that game, I could tell the week leading up to it, I thought they don't think they're going to win this. And it was noticeable because there had been too many that had been gubbed. And you could see that, but then the second one comes along. Rangers, under pressure in the league, know that the fans were on their back and turn in one of their best performances this season. Absolutely brilliant. Just get in Celtic's face, show no fear. Take the confidence from that into the next Old Firm game, where the game is a very scrappy one to start with. And Rangers, by their own admission, they lose a goal, they go a man down when Morelos goes nuts. And then at half-time, the manager reorganises them. They have a chat about what they're doing wrong and go out and play very well, and are very unfortunate not to win the game, never mind to lose it. And then on Sunday, there was just this supreme confidence in the side. And it struck me that throughout the season, this fear factor has evaporated. It's gone now. You can see that. You could see it in the last Old Firm match, but you could certainly see it yesterday. You've got players like Arfield who clearly have no respect at all for Celtic in a good way. And for the first time in a long time, there's a player who has got under Brown's skin more than he's got under theirs. And you can tell Brown just despises Arfield, who just laughs at him constantly and takes the ball off him and past him. And you can tell Arfield thinks, you're a goon and I'm better than you. And he continually proves it. You can tell Kent thinks he's better than him, Goldson, etc. And for me, that charts the evolution of this team from this slightly timid, knowing they were capable of good stuff, but also very quick to go, it's no other day, or we're not going to get the win here. And I think you can see the growth in the side throughout the season, the growth in the manager as well in terms of his tactical ability and what he's learned about these matches. And I was very encouraged by that because, as I say, I think from the team that went into the first Old Firm match at Parkhead thinking we're not going to win this, up against an opponent who thought we are going to win this, I think that has come much closer now.
Well, if you look even 12 months ago, David, I would chart the evolution from there. I heard plenty of chat from some of our esteemed mainstream media chaps telling us that Rangers haven't progressed this season. Well, 12 months ago, we played them twice in the space of a few weeks, and we were on an aggregate score of 9-0, got on 19-0. We played them at Parkhead, I think, as you said. We were timid and really, it didn't even get a shot on target, really. Then we played them December, a few weeks ago, and today. And every single game has brought the fear factor down, has our players believing that we're better than them, some of them, has seen the emergence and the mental strength of other players. Like whoever believed that John Flanagan would be playing a pivotal role in an Old Firm win, for example, and Nikola Katic at that. And if we go a year ago, then on to early September, when we're being goaded and our 800 fans are being goaded by Celtic players. We went into yesterday's game believing we could win. The players went in believing they could win. They emptied their guts, and we went after them with a real controlled performance. The biggest thing I can say about yesterday, David, is we've gone from a year ago or even 9 months ago, whenever it was, of making them look way, way better than they are, to yesterday. Celtic's best player was an auxiliary left-back who looks like Deadpool's scrotum. Honestly, for me, that's the biggest transition, that yes, we've come on so much, but look what we're doing to the other side in terms of there's not much respect going that way, when beforehand we were treating them and Aberdeen and whoever else like Real Madrid. Now there's not. Now you're seeing the growth of a team. And I hope that, it was a magnificent performance. And I've tweeted that I felt it was in reality as easy a win over Celtic as I've really known. And it was a nice day and all the rest of it. But now we've got to kick on. Otherwise we do become Martin Ramsey's fear of, we become effectively Tommy Burns Celtic.
Yeah, definitely. On Johnny Hayes, I think he looks like, see if Stephen Davis had a nut allergy and you made him eat a Snickers, I think that's what Johnny Hayes looks like. I think it's like a before and after for anaphylactic shock. But he, right, he was probably their best player. They just didn't turn up at all, and it was a well-deserved, as I say, stroll really for Rangers by the end. And a victory was secured. Now, Cammy, we've talked a lot now. Before people get upset that we haven't mentioned their particular favourite, let's just caveat this by saying I thought all of the players played really well. Special mention to Katic and Wes, who has had some poor outings against them. But I have to pick out, as I say, first of all the midfield triumvirate, who were superb. As we've mentioned, Kamara at the game I came out and people were raving about him, and I wasn't quite so sure because there were a couple of periods where he was giving the ball away that had stuck in my mind. But watching the game back, overall, he was superb. But for me, Scott Arfield has been absolutely sensational since he got his role changed a little. And I think partially it was because when we were playing with him as one of a three, he had a lot more defensive work to do. Obviously, he had to, get back, and he had to be chasing about and closing men down. Now he has freedom, and he has the ability to float into space, to play between the lines. Really, absolutely everything we'd been missing all season.
Yeah, I mean, he is. I mean, he's really come on to it. I think his connection with Defoe has really shown within the last few games. I have to believe that he obviously gives out what I've got to assume is a lungbuff and scream to Defoe in order to leave that ball at dummies, which leads up to his goal. And I was really pleased for Arfield yesterday because in the game in December, he was really unlucky not to get a goal himself. He obviously had some very good chances at the time. What I love about Scott Arfield and what he does within Old Firm games, and we touched on it earlier on, is he gives Scott Brown absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Scott Brown could turn around in his kitchen tomorrow and expect to see Scott Arfield standing there. And it's exactly what we've needed because I am not going to say, because we are, not certain other podcasts or mainstream medias, that Scott Brown is not a good player. I'm sorry, you don't achieve his levels of success unless you've got some modicum of talent. The problem I've had with what I've seen from Scott Brown in the last few years is we've made him look good. We've made it look easy for him. He's been able to stand at Hampden and take the piss out of Ian Black, and he's done virtually nothing in some of the thumpings that Celtic have given us. But he's just strolled it because no one has taken up against him. Scott Arfield absolutely does that to aplomb with him, and he does it 120%. Because he despises Scott Brown, and I think don't get wrong, I think there's a mutual, somewhat gentlemanly respect for the fact that he's a fellow professional. Beyond that, I don't even think he treats him with any kind of real regard whatsoever. That is unfair to say that that's one of only a key number of aspects of his game, but for me, it's the most favourite one that I see in Old Firm games. The ones that I see outside of games against Celtic are where he has the vision to be able to create space and open up opportunities. His finishing is predominantly excellent for the role that he's playing, but he just has a tremendous vision of where else to be able to try and see other opportunities throughout the pitch. He is playing further forward now because obviously his partnership with Defoe. I'm very, very comfortable with that. Very, very comfortable with that. And if we can utilise that as an option next season, then I would be absolutely an advocate of being able to see that moving forward. In Old Firm games, if all we had to do was say to Scott Arfield, just take Scott Brown out of the game, just remove him from the reckoning, I genuinely think Arfield would be totally happy at that. And it's great to have someone with that level of dig, again, that level of grit, to say, listen, mate, you're going to kick me and I'm going to kick you, and whoever wins this game. And that's it. That's as basic as it gets, but that's all that has to happen. And I love that about him.
I think in the past, Hoggy, that Rangers teams of the last few seasons, nice guys, generally managed by nice, decent chaps, have been shocked when they've come up against Celtic at the level of on-field hatred, at the level of commitment and, if you like, will to win and sheer dislike. I remember there was one match we were playing against them during the constant cuffings, and one of our players, I forget who it was, he went to help up Patrick Roberts, the Celtic player, who basically told him to fuck off. And I thought that sums up the difference. They for them, this is everything. This is war. They have to win. For us, we treat it like a big football match. I think that's something the gaffer has absolutely instilled in the side and has been helped by having guys like Arfield who get it and guys like Goldson who get it, and then bringing in someone like Davis who gets it. And I think that you've seen that spread throughout the side all season.
We went through a whole period of nice guy managers and estate agents. Let's not forget the bold Pedro. And we went through a whole period of nice guy players or wannabe hard men. Who could ever forget Ian Black? And we all know as fans that the old respect of the old days, and I'm thinking your John Greggs and your Billy McNeils, and even in the 80s and probably the 90s when things maybe get ramped up a little bit, but it wasn't like it is now in terms of total disrespect and total dislike. We have to understand, or the players have to understand, because I'm pretty, the support does. The support knows that Celtic hold us in complete disregard. They have no respect for us whatsoever. And we went through seemingly a period of about 3 years, David, where we thought, but we'll cuddle them back into submission. when does that ever happen? It's like a Neville Chamberlain moment.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. Yeah.
And, Neville Chamberlain has now fucked off, and hopefully we've got a guy with a bit more backbone. And certainly the turnaround this season in terms of not treating them with a level of respect that, frankly, Celtic just don't deserve, is great to see. We've been crying out for it for years, since before the banter years, probably. And seeing guys yesterday like your Arfield, like Davis, like Connor Goldson pissing himself laughing at Mikael Lustig, who has clearly shat his drawers, just that's my Rangers. I want bastards and bad guys in the team. I want bastards and bad guys in charge, because I'm firm advocate of you don't win much with a team of nice guys.
No, you don't. Not in Scotland. Certainly not when you're up against this level of hatred. And look, it shocked some of the players that we've had in the past. You could see that, but unfortunately, that's the reality of the situation. Speaking of which, Cammy, you're a qualified ref. The only bit of controversy was an incident at a corner where just as Celtic are lining up to take a corner, there's a usual sort of pushing and shoving in the box. Scott Brown goes to run across John Flanagan. John Flanagan decides that's not going to happen, and appears to hold him off in a somewhat aggressive fashion, shall we say. The referee sees it, books him. At the time, I must admit, I thought, that's an odd one. Either you saw it, in which case it's a red card, or you didn't see it, in which case it's nothing, and you've just guessed and hedged your bets there. Having seen it back, we try to be honest on here, he got away with one, I think.
Yeah, he did, yeah. I don't think Kevin Clancy saw how bad it was from the angle he was standing at, because he was almost directly behind Brown. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's the worst elbow in the world, but I think if you are winning an Old Firm game and you're in a comfortable position, and you already know how incompetent Scottish referees are, that's a very dangerous game to play, because I think that he could have given the red card, and not too many people would have complained outside of the Rangers church. A bit of a silly thing to do, probably the only blot in Flanagan's Jota yesterday, because I thought he had an excellent game. But Scott Brown clearly just has a face that people want to hit, whether you're John Flanagan or Alfredo Morelos or Ryan Kent. That's what happens. What was interesting, watching the highlights back again, was that the two of them were talking away to each other. And I would love to know what that conversation was, as to whether or not they kind of just brushed it off and gone with it. Whereas I actually think Brown was trying to act the hard man again, and Flanagan just laughing and smiling at him, just carried on with it, didn't let him get affected by it. There wasn't a point yesterday as well, and this is what kind of concerned me more than anything else in previous games, was if he'd picked up the booking, he was in a tightrope for the rest of the game. I had no concerns about that whatsoever yesterday. Never ever thought at any point, well, he's going to have to watch what he's doing here, etc. And that's because Celtic were so weak-willed going forward. Flanagan did his basics and did what he had to, never ever get called into precarious positions. But yes, I think we could have seen a red card for that one, and it might have been quite difficult for us to defend it on here.
I thought it was a red card. I'd love to hear the transcript of what went on, because it looked very much the way Flanagan was looking and laughing. It looked as if Scott Brown was doing the whole, that was an elbow, you're getting it type stuff. And Flanagan laughed and looked to basically give it the whole, cut my head, dickhead. And that's back to that respect, or lack of respect, that I want our players to show. Incidentally, two things, David, really struck me in the aftermath of that, however. You did have a bit of panty-waiting hysteria from some pundits. Isn't it interesting that not so long ago, Scott Brown could elbow Alfredo Morelos, Jason Holt, Kenny Miller, and Rangers supporters were basically just told to man up. When it happens the other way, it's not. The second thing was the level of knowledge of pundits and ex-professionals. I think the incident really showed that up. For example, Tom McManus is on Twitter giving it, it's a red card and a penalty. How can it be a penalty when the ball's not in play? It's just
Michael Stewart was the same. They don't know the rules. It's that simple. They don't know the rules of the game.
Just obvious stuff. But yeah, we got away with one. Another day gets a red card. He didn't. What's interesting, however, is Scott Brown, when he's interviewed after the game, said, yeah, it was a red card, but it wouldn't have mattered. We weren't winning the game.
See, that's the thing, and I never thought I would be doing this, but I will give Scott Brown a bit of credit yesterday because he didn't make an art go on like a dick about it to the ref. I mean, he goes on like a dick in these games in other ways, but as Cammy said, he just got up and got on with it, and then didn't try to use it as an excuse. His manager did, but that's always going to be the case, isn't it?
I'll refer listeners back as well, David. Just if we want to talk about elbows to the face incidents, and one I'm fairly sure it was either Iron or Lustig with Daniel Candeias in the game in December as an elbow to the face. So if you're going to complain about the fact that Flanagan should have got a red card yesterday, then we should have got a red card back in December. These things are swings and roundabouts, people. It goes for you, it goes against you, but we're impartial enough to be able to say, yes, it was a red, or no, it wasn't a red. So as I say, that's about balance.
But I was like Hoggy. I was a little shocked. I suppose I shouldn't be, but I was a little shocked about pundits not knowing fairly basic rule that you can't be given a penalty when the ball's not in play. It's pretty standard. It's why we see a lot of the pushing and shoving goes on before the ball comes into the box, as pretty much any football fan would be able to tell you. And the fact that football fans often know more than pundits in Scotland is one of the reasons why we started Heart and Hand. And we get to do things that we think you'll be interested in, and one of them is an interview with Michael Beale, the Rangers first team coach, which dropped on our Patreon site this morning. Absolutely fascinating, full of insight. Just $1.99 per month. Patreon.com/Heart and Hand. There's so much great content on there. In the last month alone, if interviews are your thing, we've got Michael Beale, Lorenzo Amoruso, Ian Durrant. But we've got tons and tons of content, daily shows about Rangers, breakdowns of the match, tactical breakdowns of the match, historical shows, you name it, it's on there. You'll have a very good time. It's not just entertainment, it's also a community. I think it's one you'll enjoy joining. So get along to patreon.com/Heart and Hand. One of the other things that we are doing is the first Heart and Hand book being written by Martin Ramsey, as he's compiling the 50 greatest Rangers games of all time. Yes, of all time. And he's looking for people to submit their top 10. Now, it's important the order in which you choose them, because they get given points from 1 to 10, as you can imagine. And he's looking for yours. Now, there are no real hard and fast rules in place. You don't have to have been at the game. You don't even have to have been alive during it. It can be a game that you think is very important in the annals of Rangers history. So, for instance, I would pick 1972 European Cup Winners' Cup final, even though obviously it was before my time and I wasn't there, but I still recognise the importance of it to the club. So compile your top 10 and listen, from so far pretty hard experience, it's not easy. You sit down, you go, there's 10, and then you go, but this, oh God, what about that? And then there was this. It's a very difficult process to get through, but once you've done it, send it to martin@heartandhand.co.uk, and that's Martin with a Y, Martyn, at heartandhand, and it's AND, not an ampersand, .co.uk by the last day in May, because he will shut the voting then. If you do, you'll be entered into a draw to win £100 in Amazon vouchers. Fucking costing me a fortune, this site. I mean, this is blue pounds out of my pocket, but and it's a chance to contribute to what will be the definitive book of the greatest matches in Rangers history. And guys, it sounds easy, doesn't it? You go, I'll pick my top 10, and then an hour later you've got like 50, and you're kind of going, well, I can't leave that out. And oh God,
it was horrible. It's horrible. I've got mine down to I think 18 or 19. But what's wonderful about what Martin's doing is, you mentioned there, Dave, obviously there'll be games which potentially generationally will have come from grandfathers to fathers to sons, etc., which, although you may personally not have been involved in, you understand the context behind it because it's been drip fed to you. But it'll also be the same thing as well in terms of games that are really important to you for personal reasons, what was happening in the build-up to those games, etc., as well, and obviously potentially a number of different factors coming into it. It's a labour of love.
It's remember back to when Martin did his first greatest 50, and it was the greatest 50 goals, and we had the 3 shows on the Patreon site, David. That was exceptionally difficult to do. I wanted, for example, Davy Cooper's free kick from 1985 against Hibs in there. Not many others would have thought about it, but it was that was one that had to be in there, and therefore you're sacrificing something else. That, from bitter experience, I left it to quite near the deadline, and was quite near to the deadline when I hit send. So I would implore, do not wait until 11:59 p.m. on the 31st of May to send, like I probably will. I've even got my old man doing it, David, so there's going to be some toppers in there.
Yeah, that's the thing. All generations, and like I say, you don't need to have been there. But equally, by the way, you might decide, no, I'm picking 10 games I was at, or 10 games that are important to me. That's fine as well. It's entirely up to you. And it's martin@heartandhand.co.uk. Okay, just time then to thank our executive producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Myers. To thank my guests, first of all, the lovely Mr. Ian Hogg.
Pleasure as always, mate.
The splendid Mr. Cameron Bell.
Thank you, boys. Thank you.
And we'll be back on Thursday as we look ahead to the final match of the season as we go down to Kilmarnock. Until then, have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.